Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. We are just about to start another Torah portion, another parasha, which is called Hukat. This Torah portion literally talks about prophecies, how one thing leads to another. And as I always have stated, Ecclesiastes 1:9, what it was, it will be again. This one refers to basically everything around us, and also ultimately to our Mashiach, how prophecy is fulfilled to the letter and yet to be fulfilled in the future. So we just going to go ahead and take care of it. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can get the latest of every production that we are working on. And let's start off. Parashat Hukat, which means the ordinance. It talks about basically about many things. One of them is that the Paramaduma, which is the red heifer. And let's just jump into it. It's number 39 of the sequence of the Torah portions, chapter 19, verse 9 to 22, verse 1 of Numbers. Of Bat Mirbar, Yahweh said to Moshe and Aaron, this is the Hukat. This is the regulation of the Torah that Yahweh has commanded. Tell the sons of Israel to bring you a red heifer, without fault or blemish, and never to be yoked. This is express, direct order from Yahweh to Moshe and Aaron to do something that it will basically yield ultimately to our Mashiach at the end. But there, they had to follow certain directions, certain things that will ultimately lead to something else. There were quite a few things that they needed to be done. Apart from the Paramaduma, which is the red heifer, it had to be three things: scarlet, wood, cedar, and hyssop. Hyssop is also important. Three things, and also living waters, which is running waters. All these four things had to be, or actually 5 things had to be established in order for the person who had been contaminated with a dead corpse, either an animal or a human, to be cleansed. Now let's continue. This red heifer had to be completely blemished or mum, which means Hebrew for perfect. The whole entire cow had to be red. No, not even one hair of any other color, but everything had to be completely red. Now, let's look at 8 reasons why the Holocaust was very unique. The first one was the cow was required completely, which is the cow, a red cow, no flaw or mum, is the only Holocaust in the Torah that had specifications of an animal in a certain color. The symbol is symbolic of sin. Number 2, it was the only Holocaust in Torah in comparison with all the animals. The Paramaduma, or the red heifer, was extremely rare. So true. Number 3, it was the only ritual that was done outside the Mishkan or camp of the outside or at the Beit HaMikdash. Okay. Number 4, it was the only burnt offering of blood in the Torah. In other words, the blood of the Paramaduma or cow or the red heifer did not be drained but burned. It was the only sacrifice. Number 5, it was the only ritual Holocaust that it contaminates the Kohen or the official or the priest that offer it. Number 6, the things that they were required to clean the sa'arat, the skin disease, were burned in the Holocaust. So, in other words, everything had to be burned. Number 7, it was the only Holocaust that the ashes had been preserved and were later used with the other 3 things, as I mentioned earlier: scarlet, hyssop, and cedar. Came to the waters separation, or mainly that, okay? And it was the only Holocaust, number 8, in the Torah that was explicitly cleansed upon contact with sin and death using the Mei Nidah, which is waters of separation. Now, all this had to be very, very important to be done specifically the way it was instructed. No more, no less. Exactly as the Creator commanded Moshe, that's exactly how they have to follow the directions of Yahweh specifically in this spatial Holocaust. Now, look at what the Talmud says. There were 9 paramadumot, great cows, that were offered in behalf of Israel. And the 10th will be burned by Mashiach in the return from the building of the Mikdash. Now we know for sure, we believers of Mashiach, that Mashiach came to do many things, and one of them is the sacrifices. Now what is this has to do with the building, with the Mikdash, with the temple? Let's find out. John 5:45, but do not think that I being accuser before Abba or Yahweh, but you do know who accuses you? Moshe, the same that you have counted on. For if you really believe Moshe, you will believe me, because it was about me that he wrote. You keep examining the Tanakh, or the Torah, or the whole Old Testament, how they call it, because you think that you have infinite life in it. The same scriptures bear witness of me, and is so true. Our Mashiach is the one who came to bear witness of Abba Kadosh, Yahweh Sebaot, and the Torah, and the prophets, and Psalms. And all the prophets that spoke about the Torah and the scriptures speaks about the Mashiach. Even our Jewish brothers, they say very, very direct that all the things that Torah, Moshe, and the prophets and Psalms talks about speaks about the coming of Mashiach. Exactly what Mashiach is speaking of in his own words. Now let's find out the rest. Chapter 16, verse 19, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of Yahweh. Whatsoever you bind on earth will be bound on the Shemayim in heavens. And whatsoever you loose on earth will be loose on the Shemayim in heavens. It's so true, once again, that all these things is being done. Verse 52, woe to you, the experts on the Torah, because they have taken away the key of knowledge. Not only did you yourself not enter, but you also have prevented those who have tried to enter. And it's so true, the words of our Mashiach. The keys of the kingdom, the keys of heaven, are basically the Torah itself. The knowledge that Yahweh has given us today, in this very moment, in this very last era, last generation, is the keys that we need to uphold, guard with our lives, because that's where the keys of the kingdom are given to us, the Ephraim. And let me give you an example. We happens to be the firstborn. Contrary to the popular belief, Jewish brothers are not the firstborn. If you go back in the Torah, you will find out why. The firstborn, and it's all over the scriptures. I'm not making it up, because it says very clear that Ephraim is my firstborn. The firstborn, remember that when Yaakov switched the arms, right? Switched the arms. And when he switched the arms to his brother and Ephraim, Manasseh, he gave him the firstborn right. That leaves us to believe that perhaps this was intended from the very beginning for us to be the firstborn. And remember also that the firstborn right was the double portion. The double portion belongs to us. The double portion of knowledge. Because of our Mashiach, we have that double portion of knowledge. That's where we get to understand many of the things that our Jewish brothers still trying to catch up. But we know for sure, but because of our Mashiach, we have that right to understand many things that are upheld to them. Let's find out. The first once again, the first century, that's what they try to hide the truth. They try to hide a lot of things that a lot of people try to understand, but they blocked it. Just like today, when they try to hide the name of Yahweh, the name of the names of everything, the name of Yahweh is being trying to hide for a long time. Even in the Masoretic text, go back and check it out for yourself. The name of Yahweh is being removed almost 6,000 plus times, and is being replaced by Elohim, which is demons, or Hashem, or Adonai, which has nothing to do any of those names with the name of Yahweh. Yes, Elohim appears in the Torah, yes, but it does not refer to our Creator Yahweh. It refers to demons, to deities, to idols, but never to Yahweh. If you want to go back and check it out, my production that I made, Yahweh is not Elohim, please check it out. I'll try to put a link there so you can check it out yourself. Now, let's continue. These living waters that were required to have these elements to purify that person who was impure, unclean, had to have these three elements, which is the scarlet, cedar wood, and hyssop, and of course the ashes of the red heifer, the paramaduma. Now, Zechariah 6:12, and say to him, Yahweh Sabaoth says, behold, the man whose name is Samach, the offshoot, the sprout from its stem, and I will rebuild the Beit HaMikdash, of the temple of Yahweh. How is it possible that Mashiach came in the first century to build the Mikdash? Okay, this is a direct prophecy that Mashiach were going to come and rebuild the Mikdash. How did he do that? Very, very direct. John 2:19, Yeshua answered them, destroy this Mikdash, the Hamikdash, this temple, in 3 days I will raise it again. Verse 20 says very clear that the Pharisees told them, replied to Mashiach, it took 46 years to build this temple. You want to build it in 3 days? 43 years, 46 years, and you will build it in 3 days? That's not going to happen. But Mashiach was not referring to that Mikdash, that temple. Verse 21 says, but the Mikdash, or the temple which he spoke, was his own body. And he's so direct and accurate, because since the very beginning of creation, the temple is always been our bodies. Isn't it what Shaul or Paul says very clear, that don't you know that your body is the temple of Yahweh? He says very clear that our bodies are the temple of Yahweh. Mashiach is setting up the example here that his body was the temple to be rebuilt in 3 days. Numbers 19 verse 12. This one shall be purified on the 3rd day with this water, and on the 7th it will be cleansed. And if the 3rd day he will not purify himself, no, it shall be clean on the 7th day. You see that? So in other words, what it says here very clear, that it had to be purified with that water that had all those elements in the 3rd day. On the 3rd day, you'll be unclean. On the 3rd day, you have to have that water sprinkled, because that will yield on the 7th day to be purified, to be clean completely. But if the 3rd day was not going to be purified or sprinkled that water, then it's not going to happen on the 7th day. And it's so yielding to our Mashiach and his death. His death on the 3rd day yield the sins for all of us. The resurrection. For all of us have to have the blood of our Mashiach to be redeemed for all of us. If you don't accept Mashiach as the Mashiach of Israel, I'm not talking about the Jesus, the Greek Jesus up there. I'm talking about the Hebrew Mashiach of the scriptures, then You will not be purified when Mashiach returns, which is the 7th millennium. The 7th millennium, remember that there are 6,000 years of mankind. When the 6,000 year closes, then the 7th millennium will come. On that beginning of the 7th millennium, Mashiach will come and things will happen. Will be transformed. Those who are asleep will be resurrected. Things will happen on that 7th millennium, the 7th day. But if you don't accept Mashiach as the Mashiach of Israel, and you do not accept the blood for his covenant, you will make it unto the end. That's for sure thing. So, look at what 1 Peter 3 verse 21 says. To the figure on which the tevilah, the immersion now, that it corresponds to us, not by removing of the filth of the flesh, but as demand for a good conscience before Yahweh, by the resurrection from Yeshua HaMashiach. It says very clear that because the tevilah, the immersion that the Yahweh demands from each one of us, then doesn't mean that we're not going to make errors. We will make errors. But it says very clear, as it demands a good conscience before Yahweh. And that's what it's all about, brothers and sisters. The inside is the one that Yahweh demands for us to be purified. By the resurrection of Mashiach, he is the one who yields for us that right to be resurrected on the 7th millennium. If we're still alive, of course, we'll be changed, transformed. But those who are asleep, that's what's going to happen. We'll be resurrected in the first resurrection. But once again, we have to have Mashiach in our lives. Without Mashiach, we're nothing. It's just a pure, direct statement. Hebrews 10 verse 1, for the Torah having the shadow of the good things to come, not the very image of things, can never, by the same emulation which they continually offer every year, make perfect those who come near. Otherwise they would cease to offer themselves, for those who render this service, once cleansed, would no longer be conscious of sin. In other words, it was a repeatable thing to be done every year, but that every time that immolation, that sacrifice become more like a regular routine thing and not giving the proper meaning. The meaning got lost, in other words. Look at what Zechariah 13:1 says. At that time, there will be an open spring for the house of David, for the dwellers of Jerusalem, for sin and uncleanness. Every time you see this statement, at that time, refers to the Acharei Hayamim. Acharei Hayamim is the last era. The last era that you and I are living right now. It is very important for us to accept the spring that comes from the house of David. That spring is Mashiach. Why? Because he is the one who cleans us from sin and uncleanness. Hebrews 9:11. But since Mashiach, Kohen HaGadol, or highest officer, were already present, the good things that were to come by the greater and more perfect Mishkan or temple, not made with hands, that is, not of his creation. That's one of the reasons why Mashiach had to go back to Yahweh Sebaot, because he had to present himself into the real Mishkan, to the real temple, which is not of this creation. It's only up there. And everything that was made here on earth was more like a replica. The replica of the Mishkan of the tent of the meeting, the Mishkan of the menorah, the Mishkan, the replica of a lot of things, even the temple itself. There was a replica of the real thing up there. Almost closing 9:13 of Hebrews, for it is the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of the param adumah, you see that what you saw, the red heifer is sprinkle on the unclean, separates for the purification of the flesh. All this done, now the Mashiach is the one taking basically the control of all this. And I think it's proper for us to basically yield. The Mashiach is the one that we need. Mashiach is the one we always need in our lives. Without him, we're nothing. He is our Param Adumo. He is the 10th red heifer. He's the one who came and gave the life for you and I, so we can have a better hope for the end, a better things to come. And it's so true. So once again, brothers and sisters, we'll follow up with the next Parashat. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, because we are working on many of the productions that are coming very, very soon. We'll see you next time. Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you next time.
Give us a like. Thank you. We'll begin.